It's only once every 3 years that we open the book of the prophet Jonah and read from it. And this Sunday is Jonah's time. The book of Jonah tells the tale of a man who was reluctant to do what God had asked. God said to Jonah, I want you to go to the city of Nineveh, which is about the area of modern Iraq, and tell the people there to change, to repent. And if they do change and repent, then I will not destroy them. Jonah thought that was an awful idea. He would like nothing better than to have the Ninevites destroyed. They were his enemy. So instead of heading for Nineveh, he headed in the opposite direction. And the story develops, it's a nice tale, where Jonah goes on a ship to try to get away from the whole situation. And there is a terrible storm that comes up. And in accord with the philosophy of the day, the passengers were trying to figure out who had made God angry. Why had God sent this storm to them? Jonah inexplicably tells his tale about how he had refused to go to Nineveh. So they threw Jonah overboard, thinking that would be a good way to get out of the storm. And then you know the rest of the story. Jonah gets swallowed by the whale, spends 3 days in the belly of the whale, and finally the fish spews him out and he goes to the shore. And God taps him on the shoulder again. Says, Jonah, will you go to Nineveh now? So Jonah thinks that that's the best thing to do, so he goes to the city and he walks through the streets and he gives the shortest sermon ever. 40 days and Nineveh will be destroyed unless you change your ways. And amazingly, the Ninevites, from the leaders on down, repent and they change. And God says, I will not destroy them. Now you'd think that Jonah would be happy, but he wasn't, because he was a success, but it wasn't the success he wanted. So he goes away and pouts. And it's very hot, and he sits underneath a tree, and that shades him. But he wakes up, and the tree is dead. The tree is destroyed. So he curses God for having destroyed the tree. And God says, Jonah, why are you so upset about destroying a tree? I could have destroyed all of the Ninevites, but I spared them. And that's the end of the book. The story really is not about Jonah. The story is about God. The story is about God's mercy. The story is about God's invitation that he extends over and over and over again for us to change. As we hear the message today, maybe we could look at our own lives and maybe be aware of the Jonahs that walk among us. Maybe our spouse, our children, our parents, our colleagues, our friends, who are inviting us to change, to modify our behavior so that it will be more in compliance with God's will, more reflective of being a disciple of Christ. We first have to hear it, and then like the Ninevites, we need to change. We need to introduce into our lives a new way of acting, a new way of living. And what the book of Jonah tells us is we can. We can change. We can repent. We can act and live differently. It will be 3 years more before we hear that story of Jonah again. May we not take that long to change our lives.